You talked last weekend about dry fasting and then uncoupling mitochondria. Now, what does that mean, uncoupling? Well, basically, it just means that you're not producing ATP. That's all. Really, fundamentally, it just means you're not producing ATP. You're just producing heat. That's it. You're producing heat. You know. So rather than actually, sticking a phosphate to ADP and adding magnesium and producing ATP energy, that spark, you're not doing it. You're just basically, it basically just means that you're just radiating heat. So that's what usually can happen. So certain things can actually increase uncoupling. But ketogenic diets, even the low fat diets can actually cause some level of uncoupling. So rather than actually oxidizing energy to produce ATP or oxidizing energy, excess energy, and storing it, you end up basically uncoupling it and actually radiating it away. There's only a certain amount that you do. We're not talking about massive amounts. There are some medications and things like that were used as weight loss medications in the past, which you can uncouple quite a bit, but extreme uncoupling can end up in death. Not a good thing. So normal physiology will give you some level of uncoupling in whether you're in a vegan type fasting mimicking diet, like a fruitarian or that, or you're in a sort of a state of very low carbohydrate, state with, high ketones and all that, you'll generate a bit more fasting. You'll definitely generate a bit more uncoupling as well. So, that's what happens. But dry fasting tends to increase the level of uncoupling compared to a water fast. It's just basically because you're actually releasing more free fatty acid in order to basically produce water, because you're not taking in water, so you need to produce water. So as a consequence of that, you tend to basically increase more. In terms of creating water production through the Krebs cycle, you'll end up increasing more of the precursors, you could say, the protons, to basically produce your gradient of protons will go up in a sense compared to your energy requirements. So what happens is, because you've got very low insulin, you can't store it. The only way you can get rid of that excess amount is by uncoupling and just feeding, thermogenically getting rid of it. So that's how it works. And it's the reason why you'll actually get that warmth. If you get a certain level of warmth, that's what's causing it. Stefan, interesting. So when I do a dry fast, start sweating a lot, then something is wrong. I should stop. No, if you're sweating, just because you're sweating a lot, I wouldn't actually stop. Look, within normal physiological uncoupling is not going to get into danger zones. So don't worry about it. It's only when people are putting things like compounds and stuff like that increase that uncoupling, and you could go outside the physiological range. That's when you're in trouble. That potentially could be, in extreme cases, could be lethal. That means you could cook up your own organs, your own body, from too much internal heat. So, you can, there's a certain level of uncoupling that will happen, and a certain level of that you're actually able to sweat away that extra heat. Okay, so don't really worry about it from a fast or from normal physiology. It's not a problem. Where the problem lies, or where it actually happens, is when it's out when we're using things that actually cause uncoupling, that actually push us outside the normal physiology of fasting, or or being in a more you know uncoupled state from normal, whether it's compounds in the things that we consume or stuff like that of normal things. When it's pharmacological substances or extracts or stuff like that that may cause really heavily increases in uncoupling, that's when there's a risk where people may take too many of these pills and potentially cause themselves, literally deny themselves the ability to acquire energy for their cells, by causing too much uncoupling, and that excess heat cooking up their own because they can't get rid of dissipate that extra heat through sweating. There's just, you just have a certain level you can sweat away, and then you really heat up and you can cook your internal organs. I just can't remember there was back in I think it was the 1920s, there was a sort of, I can't remember the name of the medication that was used as a weight loss. I think it was, there was one back then, and there was also one in the 50s or 60s. There were two different types that actually caused similar things of uncoupling there. But I can't remember whether I think the medication may be in the 60s, and the other one may have been some sort of compound, like an extract that was used back in the 20s. But I just can't remember their names. It's probably a decade ago when I started reading into this, and that's a long time ago. I realized that I had no interest in stuff that was sort of physiologically contraindicated and potentially risky and dangerous. So yes.